Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hello, Fun and Games podcast. Welcome back to Side Quests. My name is Will Borger. I'm a fiction writer, essayist, and freelance games journalist who's been working in the industry for about 11 years now. If you've recently read something at IGN, Shack News, or Unwinnable, there's a decent chance you've stumbled upon something that I wrote. I'm probably best known for being a fighting game expert, and I run a weekly tournament for Games Press, but I'm not here to talk about a fighting game today. Instead, I want to talk about an RTS that's near and dear to my heart. 2010's StarCraft II, Wings of Liberty. To understand why StarCraft II means so much to me, though, we've got to go back in time a little bit, to the original StarCraft. One day, when I was about 11 years old, a friend of mine brought a burned CD with a copy of StarCraft and StarCraft Brood War to my house and said, "Will, you've got to play this game." I had no idea what it was, but I trusted him. So we installed it on the family computer, used a CD key generator to get it up and running, remember this was a burned disc, and started playing. I fell in love with it almost instantly. I'd played Age of Empires before, but StarCraft was something else again. I loved the sci-fi setting, the cool characters, the story, and how different the Terran, Protoss, and Zerg were from one another. I adored playing against my buddies online and seeing all the cool maps and game types people made. I vividly remember running from house to house in my neighborhood to make sure everyone could get into a custom room for a match. That might sound strange to you, but it was a different time, man. We had dial-up internet. If I'd called any of them on the phone, I would have had to disconnect from battle.net, which would have closed the room. So I was sprinting around the neighborhood trying to figure out what the deal was and why they weren't online yet. Needless to say, StarCraft was a huge part of my childhood. It even helped me make friends when I transferred to a new middle school, one of whom had a bunch of us over for a StarCraft LAN party to celebrate his birthday. We still keep in touch 20 years later. He was one of the groomsmen at my wedding a couple years ago, and I was just at his last month. So, obviously, I couldn't wait for StarCraft II, but it took a really long time to come out. The original StarCraft came out when I was 8 years old. The sequel came out when I was 20, during my sophomore year of college. I remember when the trailer announcing it came out just as I was finishing up high school, with all of us gathering around a computer in our lab class to watch it. When it finally released, I couldn't wait to jump online with my friends, several of whom celebrated its launch at my apartment, including that one friend that I told you about earlier, who ended up being my college roommate. Life's funny like that. But what caught my eye first actually ended up being the campaign. Wings of Liberty makes the bold choice to pick up several years after Brood War ends. Jim Raynor, one of the heroes from the original game and Wings of Liberty's main character, is barely recognizable. Devastated by what happened to Sarah Kerrigan and fighting a losing rebellion against the Terran Dominion, Raynor is a barely functioning alcoholic, struggling to hold his rebellion and himself together. That is, until his old buddy Tychus Finley, an escaped convict, shows up, and the two start getting in trouble again, just like old times. The story that follows isn't really about a rebellion. It's about what happens when we lose, how we deal with loss, betrayal, hardship, and grief, and who we are in our worst moments, and our best ones. Finley is secretly working for Arcturus Minsk, the Emperor of the Terran Dominion, and the guy that Raynor is trying to take down. And the guilt over betraying his best friend is clearly messing with him. Raynor's fellow rebels are wondering how much they can trust Finley, and Raynor's increasingly erratic decision-making. Rarely do video games start with one of our heroes at their lowest moments, and rarer still do we see them struggling with things like alcoholism and the need to raise enough cash to stay afloat. But StarCraft II goes there, and that's pretty cool. And all of it plays into Wings of Liberty's campaign. It's staggeringly ambitious in its design. In between missions, you walk around Raynor's flagship, the Hyperion, talking to the crew and accepting missions to earn money to finance the revolution. Wings of Liberty's missions are segmented into several arcs, and outside of the opening and ending few missions, you can largely play them in any order, which determines the order in which you'll also unlock additional units. If you want to rush straight to battle cruisers and trivialize every other mission, you can absolutely do that. Or you can take a more measured approach and build up your infantry, or do those special Protoss missions your buddy Zeratul sends you on. It's completely up to you. And once you've got some missions and money under your belt, you can start upgrading the units you have. Raynor's leading a ragtag group, and no matter how well you do, you won't be able to afford everything. The choices you make determine what kind of army you'll want to field and how you'll approach missions. Sometimes you'll also get the choice of which mission to accept or what character to side with, opening up new paths and units and changing future missions. You'll even get the option to acquire and upgrade units from the original game that no longer appear in StarCraft II's multiplayer for balance reasons. It's a smart decision, as was Blizzard's choice to make the campaign immune to balance changes made for the multiplayer. A battlecruiser in the campaign plays very differently from one you might see online, but that's good because the campaign was designed around it. The respect for the original game is clear, but Wings of Liberty is also very clearly its own game. No two playthroughs of it will ever be the same, and the missions are some of the most memorable and impeccably designed in the genre. StarCraft II might be known for its multiplayer, but Wings of Liberty might be the best single RTS campaign ever made. It's a remarkable achievement and a reminder of what truly ambitious AAA games used to be able to achieve, a lot of which feels impossible now. Then there is the multiplayer, of course. Brood War's multiplayer is so beloved that it's still played today, and it was essentially the first esport. Blizzard could have kept StarCraft II the same as Brood War and probably been fine, but instead they completely redesigned each race, jettisoning popular units like Wraiths, Goliaths, Dragoons, Dark Archons, and Guardians for stuff like Thors, Banshees, Colossi, Void Rays, and Broodlords. If a unit did make the jump from StarCraft I to StarCraft II, it was substantially reworked. You'd never confuse the slow, lumbering queens in StarCraft II for the airborne ones that can zoom all over the map in the original with the right upgrade. But it all works. It's still a game of incredible complexity and depth, and everything about it, from the map design to the interface to the unit balance, reflects that. That's probably part of the reason the game not only maintains a robust professional scene, but an active online community. If you wanted, you could play StarCraft II's multiplayer forever and never get bored of it. And of course, there's the map editor, where people have recreated all of StarCraft II's campaign missions and the original game as co-op levels, built an entire role-playing game, battle arena modes, and a lot more. Even if you never open the editor yourself, you'll get a lot out of it just because it's there. And if you do, well, you can build some pretty incredible stuff. Finally, you've got the co-op missions, which are one of my favorite things. You can choose a commander in this mission, oversee a unique take on one of the three factions, and squad up with a buddy to take on a slew of one-off missions. Leveling up your commander unlocks new abilities and units for your army, and eventually variations of your skills and unique effects. And there's mutators that keep the missions fresh and more challenging. And all of that, when you put it together, is what makes StarCraft II special. It's a game about choice. It's a AAA game from a different era, yeah, where a developer offered the community the keys to the kingdom and trusted them to make their own fun, instead of maintaining a tight control over everything and trying to sell us features that used to be standard for a nominal fee somewhere down the line. And best of all, you can download and play it right now for free, including Wings of Liberty's entire campaign. I still play it with my friends, those very same guys that I was telling you about, all the way from back when I was a kid. That's pretty special. StarCraft II isn't a perfect game. It's always going to be associated with the terrible misconduct and abuse that was going on at Blizzard when it was developed. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that. I won't lie to you. I still grapple with StarCraft's legacy, with Blizzard's legacy, and how I feel about it. But the conclusion I've come to is this. Art isn't responsible for the people who made it, but we do owe it to history to remember what the people who made it did, so we can try to keep it from happening again. Wings of Liberty, as it turns out, has a lesson for us here, too. Raynor says we are who we choose to be during the campaign, and that stuck with me all the years since I first played it. He chooses to look past his grief and put down the bottle and try to be a better man. He chooses to believe in something, but it comes at a cost. By the end of StarCraft II's campaign, every member of its cast has had to make terrible choices that will end up defining who they are. We are who we choose to be, and if we don't like who we see in the mirror, we can choose to be someone else tomorrow. The future isn't promised, but as long as you're breathing, you still have time to change it. Wings of Liberty gets that. To quote another great piece of sci-fi media, you make your choices and you live with them, and in the end, you are those choices. We can be better if we want to be, if we choose to be. It's that easy and that hard. I go back to Wings of Liberty when I need to be reminded of that. It's a look back at a bygone age when AAA games had big ambitions and simultaneously a glimpse of what might still be possible, if we're lucky. Either way, it's still very much worth your time. If you've never played StarCraft II, I hope you'll try it. Maybe you'll get lucky, make lifelong friends like I did. And if you have, I hope you'll consider revisiting it. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
Do you feel like you're the only person in your circle who wants to go deep about video games regularly?
We were like that too, until now.
Welcome to Crossplay Conversations, the brand new bi-weekly topical video game podcast from Luke Lewis,
Joseph Hooper,
And Jacob McCoy.
with many years of breaking it down separately on shows like the Left Behind Game Club, Player Podcast, and Lukewarm Games, the gang is finally coming together to publish their gaming group chat in audio form every other week.
Expect roundtable reviews of the latest games, profiles of upcoming indies, and insightful conversations about essential topics in the video game industry. All with a mostly positive, insightful, and fun style.
Crossplay Conversations debuts on August 1st with brand new episodes hitting every other Tuesday. Help us out by subscribing on your podcast platform of choice to get the first episodes delivered straight to your feed.
And follow us on Twitter at Crossplay Convos for updates about the show.
Cheers and happy gaming.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.